Now we are going to create the drawing for the panel, and the drawing is based on the grayscale preliminary version of the panel. But making the drawing does not mean to trace over the grayscale version, because I would not be able to make sure that that I'm um, I'm doing exactly the right thing in the preliminary version. What I try to do in the preliminary version is to get a feeling for the scene that I want to depict, getting a feeling for the lighting and the atmosphere. And in the next step that we're talking about now, the drawing, I try to find the right camera angle and the right design of all the elements of the scene in order to show this. As an example, I can show you some of the grayscale preliminary versions of Chapter 1, where you can see that the things change a lot in some cases. So here you see panel number 9 of the first chapter. It's where Jonas comes out of the school, and as you can see, this scene here is shot in the preliminary grayscale version. This scene was shot on with an eye level camera, a camera that is positioned on the ground and is nearly on eye level with Jonas, who's standing on the stairs here. And the final panel, though, happened to look like this. A camera that is well, it's a crane shot, so to say. The camera is way above the ground, sitting nearly inside the treetops, and is looking down at Jonas. This was, in that case, it was a creative choice, because I wanted to let Jonas look small and a bit lost in this situation. He just left school and he doesn't really know what will happen next, and I wanted to emphasize this by the camera angle and the overall shot design. And this is the case with a lot of panels in the story. For example, just as a second example, take this shot, panel number 45. We've already seen it. Jonas enters his room at Granny's farmhouse, and you can see that the preliminary version is very different from the actual panel that ended up in the graphic novel. And there are several reasons for that. The main reason is that when I created the preliminary version, I just did it out of my head and without really thinking about the location, about the interior, and I just put everything into the panel that I wanted to see and put it into the light that I wanted to see. After that, I started to design the house of Granny. So there is for nearly every room in Granny's house there is a construction drawing. I know what's standing in the rooms, and I realized that this room was designed wrongly in the preliminary version, so I decided to rearrange the whole room, and but kept the overall lighting idea and the overall scenery. So this is exactly what I'm going to try now with our new panel. I have the grayscale preliminary version, and I will now from that I will create a drawing. And the first step to do that for me is to I will just pull the layer palette into the recording area so that you can see what I'm doing. I painted the preliminary version plainly on the background layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to clear the background so that I can now take the preliminary version. Man, this word. I'm going to call it the prelim from now on, so that I will not have to stumble upon this lousy word again. So the prelim version can be now made transparent in order to keep it as a reference, but I will keep it fairly transparent so that it only gives me a hint where the elements are placed. I will not completely rearrange this scene because now I know the scene, I know the location. It was painted in several panels before, so this is going to be the drawing will be quite true to the prelim. And well, for the drawing I need a new layer above the transparent prelim layer. But before I'm going to draw, I'm going to make some perspective lines. That's a very important step, and I want to show you how I'm doing it in the Wormworld Saga. For the perspective, I'm using the path tool. Okay, it's called the pen tool, I see, but what it is doing, it creates paths. And a path is a vector line that you can set in Photoshop, and you can manipulate this vector line like you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out a bit, and based on the prelim that is on the transparent layer above, I'm going to place perspective lines now. It starts with defining where the horizon line of the whole image will be, and I guess it will be something around here. But I won't do it with the path, I will do it with a ruler. I drag a ruler into the composition, and I decide where the eye level of the camera is. And for this shot you might remember that that in the first video where we painted the grayscale prelim, I encountered that it wouldn't be very easy to show Jonas putting the sword under the pillow, and that's mainly because of the camera perspective. The camera is too low. Jonas is blocking the sword with his own arm, and in order to be able to show the action better in a better way, I am going to raise up the camera level by effectively raising the horizon line, and you will see that if I'm now putting my perspective line onto the horizon line, you will see that we will have a better look on the top of the bed, and by that I hope to get a better look at the sword in Jonas's hand. So I have created my first perspective line with the pen tool. What I'm doing now is I'm using this direct selection tool. I'm selecting one point of this path, and I'm clicking Control C for copy and Control V for paste, and now I can grab a second line from that, and I just continue to press Control V in order to reproduce, in order to duplicate, so to say, this line, and I just um, move the lines in a way so that I get a nice bunch of perspective lines throughout the whole canvas. You can now see that because I cannot really see the grayscale prelim version, it's just very faint, and that's very good because that way it doesn't induce a perspective, and I can and by placing these lines over on top of that, I can choose my own perspective. Look what happens if I'm moving this point which lies on the horizon up and down. So this might be the original perspective that I used in the prelim, but I want to move it a bit up so that we get a better look on the top of the bed. And this will this little trick will even work will work even better if we have a second set of lines. I could just duplicate the first set, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the exact same steps just so that you can have a second look on that. So I have made my first line with the pen tool. I'm changing to the direct selection tool, selecting only one point of the line, hitting Ctrl C, Ctrl V, copy paste, and by that placing more lines on the canvas. And what you can see quite nicely now, oops, wait a minute, what have I done? I've misclicked. Is one of these lines a duplicate yet? No? Okay, so there it is. Oh, okay, screwing up here. Okay, everything works. So, app. I see. And I have to select the single point, copy it and paste it in order to not move the whole line. Yeah, screwing up like that happens all the time. I hope it wouldn't happen just when I'm recording a video, but well, what will you do? So, what happens now is that by interweaving these two sets of perspective lines, you create a perspective grid, and you can now imagine that. You can now see, you don't have to imagine, you will see that when I'm moving the 2 points that lie on the horizon up and down, this perspective grid, this perspective plane will change. Now, how do I construct this sentence? What I want to say is that we have a virtual plane here in 3D space, and by moving the points we are effectively moving the horizon. By moving these points around, we can have a different look on this plane. If we move the points down, we have a I don't know how to say it in English. We have a view from top on the plane when we move the points up, and we have a view from eye level, approximately eye level, if we move them down. So by moving these points around now, I can arrange the plane of the bed, in fact. So what I'm imagining now is to have the plane of the bed, the mattress where Jonas lies on. I try to visualize this mattress on this grid, and I try to decide where the best place to put these vanishing points to is, and I think I will decide to put them somewhere around here. So we're coming a bit around the bed, and that might give us a nice view on the sword that Jonas is putting beneath his pillow. So okay, I'm ready with my perspective lines. What I'm doing now is, here comes the layer palette. I have this clear layer here. My routine is to call it persp, which is short for perspective, and I have to pull it out in order to be able to select what I want to select. I want to select my first set of lines now. I have the transparent layer. I will take a brush, which is a very small brush, and which is a solid color. I will choose red for that. And now there's a nice little button in the path palette. It's called stroke path. And if I haven't done anything wrong when I click stroke path now, what Photoshop is going to do is go away. We can't see anything. What Photoshop does is it strokes the perspective lines with the brush and creates them as pixel information on a separate layer that I can turn on and off. I will do that with a second layer also. Persp. I take a blue color for the second set. I'm selecting the other set of perspective lines. I select the brush tool. The transparent layer is already selected. I hit stroke path in the path palette, and there's my second set of perspective lines. I can now turn off the vectors, the vector path completely. I can dial down the transparency of the I do it in the camera. I can dial down the transparency of the perspective lines. And now this is my perspective grid for the drawing, which I will perform on a new layer. So we can start with the drawing. As you can see, we still have the preliminary version. Oh, I wanted to call it prelim. The prelim version faintly in the background, and we have now our new perspective grid layers. And what I'm going to do is I'm taking a sketch pencil and I'm trying to do the drawing for this scene now. The drawing I normally do in 2 steps. I have this very rough pencil-like brush, and I'm doing a very rough drawing with that. And in a second run, I'm taking a much finer tip and trying to refine the edges and the design of the drawing a bit. So, okay, let's start with the rough brush. Oh, but before we do that, I nearly forgot a very important point. Oh no, I didn't. In fact, we are still on the original resolution of the panel, so this is still 640 by 480 pixels, which is very small. But in fact, for the very rough part of the drawing, this is a good resolution. So I will keep it just for some time. And what I thought I would have forgotten is to scale the whole panel up in resolution, but in fact I'm doing that. I'm normally doing that only when the drawing is the rough part of the drawing is done. So okay, and I have to warn you, when the drawing gets tricky, I tend to lose my ability to speak. So this now will be about drawing and not so much about speaking. Yeah, doesn't quite work to speak and to draw. So again, really rough. I'm trying to find the right composition here. Again, I have the other panels just outside the recording area, and as a reference, how the different parts of the scene are designed in other panels. That's fascinating. I literally can't speak a complete sentence when I'm drawing. That's so weird. It's just as if the human brain or my brain, maybe it's only my brain. I just can't do it at the same time. No multitasking in Mr. Lietzke's brain, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so one thing that I'm encountering right now is that I have parts of the scene that are completely uninteresting in this part here. I will now take all layers, bam, and will just move them over. Since I'm also moving all the perspective lines, that does no harm to the whole thing, scene. I mean, and because I'm just working on the very rough initial drawing, I have all the freedom. It's a general thing. You will have to make sure that you're doing the most adjustments in the roughest stage. So when I'm doing this rough painting here, I try to, if I have to change something, if I have to move something around, I will try to do it at this. Man, something is exploding out there. Yeah, you know, what you have to know is it's Sunday here in Germany, and there's well, I don't know how you call it in English. It's Carnival in Germany, and what these guys are doing out there is they are shooting confetti with a confetti cannon, I guess. I think it's called Mardi Gras in America, for example. It's stupid guys in costumes and red noses and they are drinking a lot of alcohol and all this crazy stuff, and well, obviously they try to shoot each other with confetti cannons. So if you're hearing some explosion type sound effects in the background of this recording, don't be afraid. I'm not sitting in Libya here. It's just Carnival in Germany. Tomorrow on Monday it's called Roses Monday, Rosenmontag. That's the biggest day of German Carnival. People are on the streets, sitting on decorated wagons that are driving through the streets. They are going to throw candy all over the place. The whole town after Rosenmontag will be covered in candy, except for the candy the children manage to pick up and bring home. It's really weird. So, and do you notice that I'm able to tell you something about German Carnival, although I'm drawing? That's really interesting. I seem to be able to talk about completely. No, I'm not. You know, this is so crazy. I have never recorded it like that, but just the moment I came to the character, I wasn't able to speak. If I'm painting some easy stuff like shelves or posters or the bed, the geometrical stuff that just goes with the perspective lines, that's no problem. I can tell you my whole life story while I'm while I'm drawing shelves and stuff like that. But as soon as I'm going to a character, it's impossible for me to tell you anything with meaning. Funny. Okay. So we will have the sword here, and this is a part that I will have to figure out in the next step when I'm taking a finer brush to paint the detail. I'm trying to draw a little light radius here just to find out how much light we'll get into these regions here. The region on the right, the top right corner will be very dark. I don't think that any of the details that I'm drawing here will actually be visible. But anyway, it might happen. So I better. Now I'm on the cat and I can't speak anymore. That is just so crazy. Yeah, I can literally feel it when I'm coming to a character, a creature, something like that. It's just so complicated to draw. It follows so many laws and rules to create a creature. Yeah, it's just too hard to paint a cat or to draw a cat and speak at the same time. So Jonas puts his sword under his pillow. I hope that we will be able to see this sword. And he will say something to Wiggins, a word balloon. It will go something like here or so. But I won't keep, or I won't plan the word balloons in the drawing. In fact, that is something I completely missed in the first video. Normally in the preliminary, in the prelim grayscale version, I would also place the word balloons that need to go there. I totally forgot that, so I'm just telling you now that a word balloon will go somewhere like here later. But I keep them out of the drawing because I'm drawing the panels of the Wormworld Saga as individual artworks. Essentially, what I want to achieve is that every panel, or let's say the most panels of the Wormworld Saga, should stand out as artworks of their own. I want to be able to print out a panel of the Wormworld Saga and have a nice, compelling artwork. And the idea to create a complete narration out of artworks that can stand their own ground as artworks is really nice for me. The idea, it's a nice idea. So this is the first part of the drawing, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scale the whole thing up. So we had a size of 640 by 480 pixels, and this is the original size of the panel as it is seen on the internet in the online graphic novel. But for the drawing, for the detailed drawing and for the painting, I'm scaling the whole thing up 300%. So I'm working on the artwork 3 times as big as the version that you see on the internet. Now, I will now make the rough drawing, the scribble, so to say, more transparent. I think I will just turn off the prelim grayscale version, and I will create a new layer onto which I will draw in more detail now. I will also, I guess, dial down the perspective layers, because the perspective now is quite obvious from the rough scribble, and I don't need the perspective lines in order to keep this perspective. So, well, in fact, what I could do now is change to a smaller tool, but because I have scaled up the whole image 300%, my original tool is now much more much smaller than before, because relatively to the screen canvas it's now 3 times smaller, and that is small enough to use it. And again, I'm painting a character and I'm not able to speak. That's crazy. But hey. We have to live with it. And now we also need an eraser. What really is very important with a character is to get the shapes right. Jonas has this very angular shape of his hair that kind of defines the character. And now we also have to think a bit about the pose of him. I think that he rests on his right arm. His right arm sits, his elbow sits on the mattress, and he puts all his weight on it. So this shoulder is going to be up, and the other arm, he reaches out with the other arm, so his left arm and the shoulder will go down. This is a complicated pose. I wonder how I'm able to speak at all. I'm not. Oh, this is a sword. I can speak when I'm painting a sword, because it's a geometrical body. Geometrical objects are really easy to paint and to draw if you have an established perspective. And what you can see here is that I screwed up the perspective a bit. This is the perspective line here, and this is the perspective line. So I will have to adjust this all a bit here. Geometrical drawing geometrical things, if you have an established perspective, shouldn't be too hard. If you're just starting out with perspective drawing, of course it's not that easy. But with a bit of training, you will be able to paint just any angle of a geometric object. if you have an established perspective. So the same is true for everything, for every furniture in this panel. The bed. Just have to follow these perspective lines. And what comes in quite handy here is that the style, the visual style of the Wormworld Saga is not so much about detail. I'm really not trying to paint everything in most meticulous detail. What I'm trying to do is to give you hints. I'm trying to to give you a hint what it is you're seeing there. It is a bed, it is a boy, it is a cat, it's a wooden sword. What I try to do is to draw the least possible detail that will still make it read for you. So I'm really not thinking about how can I draw it in a way that it is more real, more detailed. What I'm trying to the point that I'm trying to find is the point the point where you see I'm at the character and I can't talk anymore. That is so crazy. Let me just paint this character. I just found a good pose for him. You know, his elbow is on the mattress here, and his hand goes down beneath the sheet. And just to make the pose more striking, I am going to sketch out his legs underneath the sheet. Oh, that is so crazy. I can totally paint this bed and everything, but I'm not able to paint a character and speak correctly. Okay. Where was I? Yes, before I'm starting to paint the cat, and I won't be able to say anything meaningful on that during that time. I will finish the bed, and I try to tell you what I start with. What I'm looking for with the visual style of the Wormworld Saga is a point of detail or a level of detail that will allow you to understand what's in the scene and to understand what I want to tell you, the visual story I want to tell you, and not to do anything beyond that. I don't want to put immense effort into rendering out every little detail. Oh, a Photoshop bug. I know that bug. I have to do a task switch in order to solve it. Task switch. Back again. That's a bug of Photoshop CS5. Sometimes at least on my machine, he loses the ability to draw, and you have to do a quick task change in order to get him back to life. So we still have the T-shirt hanging over the lamp in order to dim it down a bit. Jonas is all doing this in secret, you know. His father thinks that he's in bed, and he went onto the attic to get his adventure equipment and his wooden sword, and he has dimmed down the light in order to hide this fact from his father, who might enter the staircase and might see light from beneath Jonas's door. And to prevent that, Jonas has put his T-shirt over the lamp. Yeah, he's a cunning little boy. You will see that throughout the Wormworld Saga, that Jonas is a bit a bit timid, a bit shy sometimes, but he is cunning. He knows what to do in order to get what he wants. He knows that he can't. He know what he can. He knows what he can tell people and what he better keeps for himself. And yeah, these are really the character traits of Jonas. And now comes the cat. Oh wait, I will draw some of this stuff here. By the way, just as a little special information for you, the poster that is here, and it's a character, you know. You don't know that it is a character, but I'm painting a character and I can't speak. Man, this is turning out to be a real annoyance. It's a Captain Orion poster, okay? Captain Orion, you know, it's the spaceman. He's a spaceman and he's cool, and in Jonas's world there is a movie, and the movie is called Captain Orion. He's an astronaut, an asteroid miner who discovers a secret world inside an asteroid field, a secret portal to a place where wonder is and adventure. And Jonas loves this movie. He loves everything about Captain Orion. In fact, the T-shirt Jonas wears in the first chapter is the Captain Orion T-shirt. You don't see it. You don't see it in the first chapter because there's not a single painting, or not a single panel where you have a clear look at the logo that is painted on Jonas's shirt. This is in this panel you can see that he has a round logo on his T-shirt, and it is the Captain Orion logo. If you want to see the Captain Orion logo, just go to we do that together. Captain Orion Adventures.com. This is Captain Orion Adventures.com, a domain I registered a few years ago, and this is the Captain Orion logo. I hope someday to be able to tell the story of Captain Orion. It's a fascinating story. It's full of fantasy, adventure, science fiction, space opera, everything you would want to see in a movie that is called Captain Orion. Jonas loves this movie, and he has a movie poster from Captain Orion in his room. Now, we are nearly finished. I just have to draw that cat. Cat is hard to draw. Will not be able to speak while drawing cat. Unfortunately, the real Wiggins, who was lying on the chair just a few meters from here, he has vanished because of the noise from outside. The confetti cannons scared him away. He's a coward. He really is a coward. You know that from the I have to decide how to lay down his head. He would always lay down his head in a really sweet fashion, like that. Oh, he loves to lie on the bed. We don't let him, but Jonas is a nice little boy, and he enjoys the company of the cat, and he lets the cat lie in his bed. He doesn't care for all the cat hair that Wiggins spreads all over the sheets. Yeah, the real Wiggins really is a coward. We have two cats, in fact. Wiggins is the older cat. We have a younger cat that is called Yoshi. Yoshi is an adventurous cat. He is brave. He knows no fear. He attacks birds that are twice the size of him. Yeah. Once he came home with a giant pigeon in his maw. He wasn't able to kill the pigeon because it was so big, but and I managed to free it from his clutches and save it. But most of the times he brings mice home, and normally they are living, and normally we are able to save them too. But every time Yoshi brings a mouse home, Wiggins is so afraid of them. They move, they are so quick! Oh! Wiggins is a true coward. But a cuddly coward. I love him. And, you know, I just noticed something really, really special. When I was talking about Wiggins, I was able to draw him, although I was talking. So, maybe it's not the case that you can't talk and draw, but you can't draw and talk of anything else than the thing you're drawing. That's interesting. Well, I would say the initial drawing for the panel is quite ready. I would say this is enough. Like I said, I'm not going for maximum detail here. The Wormworld Saga is designed to be very impressionistic, and I guess well, what I can do is I can erase some of the parts of the rough drawing that are completely different than the final drawing, so that I don't confuse it. But generally, this is completely okay. And you see, I have created this drawing in round about 45 minutes. So this is an average time for me for a drawing like that, for a drawing of a panel of that size. So okay, we're done with the drawing, and now we're going to the next step, which is the painting. See you there.